Hi everyone, I'm Kristen Berry. I work at Save the Harbor, Save the Bay in our youth leadership and development program. I'll talk about that today. So again, this is my contact info just in case you want to talk to me later about collaborating. A lot of what we're excited about today is just to talk to a bunch of folks about our kind of pilot program this summer that we're doing with our youth. But yeah, so a little bit about Save the Harbor. What we do is environmental education with young folks throughout the Boston Harbor. So our model is hiring about 40 youths, high school staff, as well as folks that are in college aged, and just out of school in their early 20s. All of these folks work together in small groups and go out to different sites in the Boston Harbor to collaborate with our partners. So folks at Camp Harborview, folks at Pierce Park Sailing Center, at the Children's Museum, just to name a few. And so they work with the youth that are there to introduce and kind of connect youth with the Boston Harbor, the species that live there. And again, talking about climate threats to Boston Harbor and just folks' impact on the waterfront and the climate as well. They interact with about 250 youth and community groups. So that includes our daily, well, Tuesday through Thursday trips out to George's and Spectacle Island throughout the summer. And again, we do some touch tanks fishing, exploration of the intertidal zone, and just talking about history of Spectacle Island and George's Island, as well as the biology and the marine connection to the water there. So not only do our youth staff work with the younger folks, but we also make sure that we are having our youth staff learn to lead as they are working with the younger folks as well. In the past couple of years, we've moved to a schedule where Fridays are really just focused on youth development and leadership. And so what we have done is we've partnered with local orgs, many of who are in the room right now, to do field trips and youth collaborations. And so what we've done is, have our group go to other sites to just hear from other uh, employ youth employees, like at the aquarium, at Pierce Park, at NOAA, just again to name a few, to hear about what they're doing in relation to the Boston Harbor, to climate, and if they kind of want to hear about um, other potential jobs outside of Save the Harbor that still work with Boston Harbor and climate. Um, what we are hoping to do this year, and what we're just gonna do, and we're again looking for more connections from like-minded orgs, which again a lot of folks in the room today, is to really take our model of our youth working with the younger folks, but also kind of create a second cohort of youth. So we're not going to hire more youth, but we're going to split our youth in two. So have two 3-week sessions where they're exploring kind of independent research questions. So groups of 2 to 3 students. And the goal is to enhance their skills in field research, data analysis, scientific writing, presenting, and public speaking. And so again, we're looking to, and we've started to reach out to folks, but we're excited to talk to folks in the room this afternoon and also in the Zoom room today to really.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kristen. That was great.
Oh,
And we'll
okay.
have more
Yeah.
time in the
Sorry.
breakouts to connect with
Yeah.
Kristen and
Yeah. No
do that.
worries.
Thank you. Our next speaker is um, Emily Zlavor, Camp Harborview Activities. She's in the School for the Environment at UMass Boston.
Awesome. Thank you, Bob. That's actually a great segue into kind of what I want to talk about a little bit because we are now working. And this summer, I had the opportunity to work at Camp Harborview, also kind of bringing some of that hands-on learning experience to the campers there. So I worked the past summer and we brought 3 different weeks and we did 3 lessons each week. So it was 3 consecutive days of hands-on learning experience. And when we were picking these lessons, we worked with COSI, which was an organization where they had developed some of these lessons, and Bob Chen, who had run a lot of these lessons in the past. And we wanted to make sure that we were using the island around the students. So what was the natural environment? What could they experience kind of where they were and what they saw every single day? So we developed these 3 lessons and adapted them. So the first one was this plankton race lesson where students were able to have a whole host of materials to choose from. And they were trying to develop a plankton that would kind of stay in that photic zone. So as we were going, we were talking about, what is a plankton? What is a phytoplankton? Why does it need to stay in the photic zone? And kind of all of these really these pieces of knowledge that we could give students through the experience while they were doing an activity that was getting them engaged. So instead of having it be a lecture style, it was really something that students were able to learn through that experience. And then as at the end of this lesson, we had them race their plankton. So there was a lot of competition. There was excitement in the room. The students were excited to get their plankton to kind of sink the slowest so that it would kind of still be able to photosynthesize, but it wouldn't be floating so that it could be exposed to prey. So all of these different little kind of knowledge points that we were able to tap into, and students were really picking up as they were doing this hands-on activity. The next one we did was a plankton tow, where students were able to then the second day they built these plankton tows. And as we were designing them, we were talking about what do the construction of this plankton tow, what does it need to be in order to capture plankton in the water while still letting the water flow through. So we talked about the mesh, the size of the mesh, how they could design it, what volume of water did they need to tow through it. So kind of getting some of that hands-on learning and again, that inquiry-based learning as they were developing them.
1 minute.
And then the last lesson, which was definitely my favorite, was where students actually got to go out to the water. They used their plankton toes. And when they would hold them up, they were looking at their water sample and they were very skeptical at first. They were like, there's nothing in here. We don't see anything. Like, you're lying to us. And then we were actually able to bring these back to the room. We were making slides, and they were incredible at how quickly the students were able to pick up on how to prep those slides, how to use the microscopes. And then they were actually able to see some of those copepods, some of those zooplankton that we were caught in the water, and their minds were blown. They were really, really excited. So it was, again, that experience that they never even knew was out in the ocean right around them, that through this hands-on learning, they were able to go through it. It was awesome to see.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emily. Our next talk is Cultivating Black Girl Environmentalist Curiosity. Seems right on point. Renee LaPointe Jameson.
Hi, everyone. My name is Renee LaPointe Jameson. I'm an environmental engineer. I also am the founder and leader of the Boston branch of the national nonprofit organization Black Girl Environmentalist. I'm going to talk so quickly because there's a lot to talk about. So Black Girl Environmentalist, again, we're a national nonprofit. We're dedicated to improving the pathway for and retention of Black girls, women, and gender expansive people in the climate justice movement and environmental fields. As the Boston Hub lead, I host free professional development, youth advocacy, and nature excursion programming to build community, share resources, and have people try new experiences. So I founded the Hub. We're in around 15 cities. Membership is free. I founded this Hub last February. Since then, I've hosted free events 14 for over 300 people, from toddlers to retired professionals. Here are 3 of my favorites. We have a series where we invite Black women and local environmental professors to share their research, have a networking dinner, and just connect with one another. We volunteer with the Prison Book Program, where we learn about environmental injustice in relation to prison and also help get essential literature to incarcerated people across the country. And we also did some kayaking on the Charles with Paddle Boston, and learned about water safety. So again, this is just a small snapshot of a lot of things that we're doing that I'm very proud of. And when I think about what does it mean to cultivate Black girl environmentalists, non-binary Black people's interest in environmental spaces, I think a big part about our work is understanding that changing that narrative that Black women, Black girls, Black gender expansive people are not interested in the environmental space. These groups of people experience climate change and other environmental hazards with disproportionate severity due to inequality, colonialism, racism, gender inequality. So as a community that intimately knows these problems, we know the solutions best to climate change, to environmental issues, and we're just often not listened to or given a platform. So I really think part of the cultivating the curiosity needs to be acknowledging that we're not underrepresented in this space. We're historically and continuously pushed out of it and excluded. So what can you do? Very, very briefly, I think it's understanding that we are not a box to check. We're essential to be having in your spaces because we're qualified, excellent professionals and candidates and community members that have unique ideas and perspectives. So make sure that you're compensating your community liaisons and members of this community when they're doing work for you. Make sure you're understanding that environmental justice is racial justice and those things are interconnected. And make sure that you're approaching environmental issues from the understanding that their root causes are systems of oppression, explicitly capitalism, colonialism, and white supremacy. And if this is the first time you're hearing that and your work doesn't connect to those roots, time for some reflection.
1 minute left.
Oh, I'm so ahead of time. Wow, amazing. Well, thank you. That's it. If you want to connect to collaborate on events, please feel free to reach out. I may have to leave early because of other work commitments, but I'm very grateful to be a part of this conversation. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Renee. That was great. Our next talk is Julia Pangan from See Ahead, Bridge to Blue Tech and the Power of Internships.
Thanks, Bob. Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm Julia Pangan. I'm with See Ahead, where we support startups that are driving positive impact in marine conservation and ocean-related industries. So Blue Tech, if you're familiar with that term. And we are super excited to be running an internship program this summer with UMass Boston. My colleague, Amy Bonanno, has been super helpful, and this program is a sort of secondary cycle of a pilot program that we ran in 2022. And I'm excited to tell you guys a little bit more about this. So the Bridge to Blue Tech internship program is focused on placing underrepresented students in, sorry, just moving the videos here, in paid part-time summer internships at See Ahead affiliated startups. These are startups that come through our programs and work with our angel investor network. So we're quite familiar with them and we know what their needs are. And the mission of the program is to make Blue Tech career paths more accessible while also meeting a startup's need for talent. I'm going to give Amy credit for the next couple of slides because she's done some wonderful work in articulating exactly why this program is important. As many of you may know, Blue Tech is an emerging venture sector. It's, because it's emerging, there's also a great opportunity here to make sure that standards and precedents around diversity in the workforce are established. Unfortunately, at the moment, women and communities of color make up a very small percentage of the tech workforce, and ocean sciences in particular remain particularly undiverse amongst the scientific disciplines. And on top of this, we know that companies with diverse workforces are more likely to outperform their less diverse competitors. And at the end of the day, we want all students to have access to and preparation for high-paying jobs, while also helping important solutions and startups grow and flourish. A little bit more on how diversity in the workforce increases innovation and creativity. I'm sure none of this is lost on all of you. Better problem solving for your company, ability to attract better talent, improve decision making, and also meaningful impact for historically excluded communities and students in our networks who are really interested in working in an impactful sector. So some details around the internship program. It's a 12-week part-time summer internship. With a maximum of 280 hours at a minimum of $18 an hour. Obviously, there's a lot of information here, and I'm happy to answer questions later. But we do offer internships that are available from the associate's degree level to the graduate degree level, and the pay is adjusted to match a student's capability and training. And most of the internships will be located in the New England area, with many of them being virtual and some of them being in person or hybrid if an employer is based in Rhode Island or Massachusetts. And lastly, here's the application form QR code. Please feel free to scan it to find the application form link. This year, we're partnering with UMass Boston, Bunker Hill Community College, the University of Rhode Island, and Tribe Academy. So if you are a student involved in one of these institutions or organizations, you are eligible this year. Unfortunately, at the moment, we aren't working with any other partners, but we're really looking forward to expanding this program into the future. And there's information if you want to reach out to any of us with questions. Thank you so much.
Julia, thank you so much. Our next speaker is Dan Levesque from School for the Environment at UMass Boston, Education and Empowerment versus Youth Climate Anxiety.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Bob. So my thesis currently is focusing on getting a salt marsh science program started on the South Shore, with the goals of getting students involved in their local environment, specifically salt marshes, sort of serving as the medium for this, and determining if having the students go through scientific education in terms of just climate change content, scientific research content, and then in the summer getting to actually conduct a scientific research project in these salt marshes using what they learned. If we can detect a measurable change in climate anxiety before and after the program. So we're really trying to empower all the students. You know, a lot of these kids grow up in this environment, especially in the South Shore. There's salt marshes everywhere, and they, they know the salt marshes are there, and they know maybe that there's research that can be done. Some kids will have interest in science as a career field, but they might not feel like they have the means to contribute or the means to help out. So a lot of the focus of this program is if we can provide them with the knowledge and the skills that we can improve their confidence levels, they can feel like, oh, I can be a part of this too. I can help out. And a lot of what I want to focus on is, you might not go off to be some researcher at an academic institution with a PhD, but there are so many levels of community science that goes on that everyone can contribute to. And, obviously with the state of the world right now, I've had a lot of thoughts recently of like, it feels so hard to tell these kids, like there's hope about the climate and like climate change. But I think on the flip side, it's more important than ever now that programs like this and programs like the ones that have already been discussed today are running, because, we need to inspire the youth and the younger generations to let them know that, it's not all doom and gloom. The future has hope and opportunity, and you can be a part of it too. So our focus on reducing ideally you would reduce the levels of climate anxiety, but we're focusing on if there's going to be a measurable change in their climate anxiety using surveys before and after. It's possible that the climate anxiety goes up. It's possible that it stays the same. But either way, we're just looking for a measurable change. And so we're going to have some local students help from Hull High School currently at the moment is going to be our focus, with the opportunity for other towns to sort of hop in. And we're collaborating with the educators at Hull High School to get this project off the ground. And hopefully, even after I graduate, they'll be able to keep running it annually and get more students involved in their local environment. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dan. And our last talk of the first session is from Tara Duffy at Northeastern, Building Conservation Skills in Graduate Students Through Transparent Notice of Intent Assignment.
Folks, all right. I'm apologizing. My voice is a little off today because I'm getting over being sick, but hopefully you all can see that. All right. Hi, everybody. All of this work is so amazing. I'm really happy to be here. So I'm a teaching instructor at Northeastern University. I also am the Associate Dean for Belonging and Engagement in the College of Science. So I wanted to talk today briefly about a project that I've been doing with students who are in the Masters of Marine Biology at Northeastern, otherwise the 3Cs program, which is something that you might have heard about. These are first-year Masters of Marine Biology students. And so some of them are undergrads transitioning into the grad program. Some of them are coming from outside of Northeastern. And one of the courses that they're taking as a foundational course is New England Marine Biomes. We know that these students, when they leave the Masters of Marine Science or Marine Biology, they're going into applied fields. So they're going into conservation and restoration primarily. And we know that like they're doing this, even if they decide to go on to grad school, that they're working. So we want to give them skills to be successful in the workforce. So my goal in this project is to provide the kind of training you might expect to be applied to environmental consulting positions, because we know that those kinds of positions are out there and available, and that our students are taking advantage of them. There's some challenges in this course. So the students have disparate levels in marine science. Some of them are coming in with a geology background with very little marine focus. So it's really trying to get them all in the same playing field and to make sure that they're utilizing their expertise in a group setting. So I want to be able to provide them with work that's going to produce something that they can use to get the job, but also develop new skills. And so I created this notice of intent assignment. So a notice of intent is a document that you create if you're doing any project in or near wetland or water resources area. This includes coastlines here in Massachusetts. We have very stringent protections against or for our coastlines and wetlands through the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act.
1 minute.
Thank you. And so in this assignment, I give them examples. So here are some notice of intents that have been submitted. And then I use AI to generate very, we'll say, sort of concrete examples of what kinds of projects they might be working on. They work in different systems, they work in groups. These are a couple of examples of them. Like, I say, okay, in Lynn is deciding to go to put in this fishing pier. So go to Lynn, do these site visits. And then we work through this notice of intent together, and they produce this throughout the end of the semester. So this is a fun project. It provides a lot of clarity and engagement for the students. They get some new skills. Students have reported that they're utilizing these documents to acquire jobs. And I've included a couple of quotes that students have provided in feedback. And the one that I've highlighted here is that, students are saying it's encouraging them to think differently about solutions for an entire community and not just one very specific thing. So with that, I will say thank you.
Thank you.
All of these planning approaches do rely on accurate data about the present, where and when flooding is occurring right now. I'm interested in opening up the idea of where this data can come from to include more than just traditional and technical instruments, because at its core, flooding is affecting how communities function. I think the perfect platform in order to monitor and track this, but also to share our community experiences, is through social media. So far for my project, I've been scrubbing social media platforms like X, Instagram, Facebook, Nextdoor, for discussions about flooding. And a lot of times it's people talking about how their homes, their businesses, their commutes are being affected. And from posts like these, we can figure out the time, location, and extent that flood occurred. The information from this could be used to verify or expand our current knowledge about flood patterns and to improve models used to predict the future and plan for the future. More importantly, though, our posts by our community can provide critical public safety information about what's happening in order to facilitate emergency management, like what roads do we need to close right now? Are there areas that maybe need to be evacuated? And first response. And I think the most exciting thing about social media as a tool for me is the opportunity for two-way communication and the power of seeing and sharing what you're experiencing. This is just a little thing I wanted to share with you guys, a graphic from an introductory environmental science class that I'm a teacher's assistant for, where we asked the students where they're getting their environmental science information, and 30% said TikTok. And if you lump all social media together, it's closer to 40%. So I think it's really cool that people and young people are already engaging with science and environmental issues, a lot of times without even seeking it out. So I'm hoping that by doing a project like this and expanding what we consider data, we can encourage more people to share their voices and to spread awareness about scientific and like public safety issues, and to work together in order to build this more resilient future. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Emma. So next up, we're going to be hearing from Layla Pearson with Waterways to Heat Island Mitigation. So let me just go ahead and share those slides.
Okay, perfect. So Heat Island tabling, curating connection, and celebrating opportunity. So my name is Layla Pearson. I'm a Roxbury resident and the community engagement coordinator for the American City Coalition. And prior to that, I was studying environmental studies and sociology. I haven't done my master's just yet, but hopefully that's next up. The American City Coalition is an economic development and community empowerment nonprofit in Roxbury. Our primary audience is the Black and Brown Roxbury and Dorchester community. And we tackle community identified barriers through economic and workforce strategies, public programming, policy, and research, both to push ourselves and others to think about community needs and address racial inequality. And Waterways is one of our initiatives. So Waterways is our effort to support our residents in getting more benefits from living in a coastal city. So we identify those benefits as recreation, as you can see here in one of our photos, as health and wellness, awareness of climate change. Oops, sorry, I'm like blowing through the slides because I'm not doing the clicking this time. It's one more slide. There you go. There you go. Yes. So we identify those benefits as recreation, health and wellness, awareness of climate change, and then next slide, economic development or economic mobility and opportunity. And then next slide again. As well as knowing our rights to the waterfront and an inclusive history, so that the residents are able to return in ways that are accessible, affordable, and inviting and worthwhile for them. And then this is all sort of the buildup and the context for the next slide and the tabling activity that we put together. So this tabling was developed in 2023 with the support of Rebecca, Brittany, and Hope of the Stone Living Lab. So it's been great to work with them and then see them here as well today. And they were able to use some of their knowledge from the climate car activities. And this activity, as you can see on the table, has several entry points. So it's a useful way to engage in conversation. So we have the map, which shows that Roxbury is a heat island, but that there are definitely areas that are cooler. And so we can talk about, is it just the urban density? Is it maybe there's more greenery in this area? What are the reasons this pocket of the community is cooler? Then we also have surface level thermometers on the table and different substances and materials so that participants can both test what's on the table and in the environment to say, okay, what's absorbing heat? What's releasing heat? What strategies could we use with this information? And then lastly, we're really in conversation, but also through like they can write it down or draw a picture or something. We're asking where participants go. So where they go to stay cool. And this is a useful bridge to our work because we're talking waterfront, but we're working in Roxbury and Dorchester, which is not waterfront. So this is a more natural connection, but also it's just very relevant. So whether or not participants and Roxbury Dorchester residents are going to the waterfront, they're in their neighborhoods and experiencing the heat. And this is just one way of highlighting their own expertise. So this doesn't have to be like a big gloom and doom climate scenario. It's really talking about what we already know and what we can do both at a personal level, maybe it's clothing, or maybe we're thinking about urban planning and what we might be able to envision as a better future, just so that it can be very local, but hopefully hopeful and highlighting that opportunity that exists as well. And then the next slide is just to say thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Layla. We were so excited to partner on that program. And I think that's a perfect example of the ways that we can each leverage our different expertise to create some really meaningful programming. So next up, we are going to be hearing from Kalima Mustafa Woodberg to talk about insect and pollinator public programming. So shifting into our arthropods. Take it away, Kalima.
Can you hear me and see
Can
my
hear you
screen?
and see the slides.
Okay, perfect. So again, my name is Kalima. I use she, they pronouns, and I work as the program coordinator for Boston Harbor Now. And I also work as a teacher naturalist for Mass Audubon's Boston Nature Center. And between these two organizations, I have been coordinating and leading insect programming and pollinator programming for a few years. So for this talk, I will just focus on one of the larger events that I coordinated this past Labor Day. So this took place on the Boston Harbor Islands. We had several partners and about 300 participants that signed up for the day, for a day of educational programming that centered specifically on pollinators. So on the right there, we had pollinator safaris led by the hour from a Tufts PhD graduate, Nick Dorian. So he took groups of folks around the island to find different invertebrates and learn on the spot about the insects that they were finding. And then on the bottom there, we had two porch talks, one also being by a PhD student at UMass Boston, Taya Montague, who talked about moths and moth pollination. She studies sphinx moths, so she had this great display of live sphinx caterpillars on the table. And then we also had the Boston Nature Center come and do a tabling activity that taught folks about the life cycles. The craft specifically that they're doing right there is about the life cycle of solitary bees. In the vision I had for this program would be to leave out honeybees from the conversation, since they're so often highlighted, and really highlight all the other pollinators that we have, and especially our native pollinators. We also had several other groups that came that aren't pictured. We had other pollinator arts. We had native seed giveaways. Master Gardener of Massachusetts came out and did a table. So it turned out to be a really wonderful event, and we are doing it again this year and looking for even more partners to help with that, to help make that come true. And then this is just a sample snapshot of insect events that I've been doing around Boston. And I will talk more in depth about them in the breakout session.
Awesome. Thank you, Kalima. So we're going to move on to our next speaker here. We're going to hear from Melissa Roberts at UMB as well. So nature-based learning, blending science and literacy. And Melissa, you are muted still.
There we go. Let me share. Okay, can you see?
Not yet.
Oh no, my sharing's not working.
No worries.
Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go. So I'm Melissa, and I am here to talk about utilizing nature-based picture books to introduce environmental science curriculum. I am studying nature-based curriculum, nature-based solutions at UMB. I'm a graduate student, but in my free time, I'm also a children's book author, and I really am interested in literacy and science and how it can promote engagement in material for children to get engaged with.
Melissa, just so you know, we're seeing not the presenter view, but the back end view, just so you know. We can't see the slides, but we're in that.
Okay. How's that?
Perfect. There we go.
Okay. So utilizing story can unlock a subject for children, and once they're hooked on story, supporting materials can be implemented in a classroom, or it can even be adaptable to informal science programs and even free library programs. I love doing this work because it can really preview a lot of material for very young children who may be frightened or have difficulty being outside. There are some children that are a little scared of nature, and story can help them see a worm or a habitat before they experience it. And literacy and science together can engage children and inspire even their own creativity and access their own agency within their own communities. And one thing I always like to talk about is how we can develop environmental science picture books. I am part of a writing group, and we do talk about the different ways that we can really make material that is engaging for children. And one thing I always like to do is to make it relatable to their lived experiences and their communities. I think it's important to understand what they're learning about in their classrooms, in their programs that they attend outside of school, and also what they're learning from their families. And talk to children. Some folks I know are a little intimidated to talk to children, but talking to children within the age range that you're writing for, and how they process information, the questions they may have, they can inform your writing. And I use the feedback from children to further develop my story and try to encompass, I think it's important to try and encompass these days a variety of communities in your writing when you're writing environmental picture books for children, because flooding is something that affects coastal communities, it affects suburban communities, and making your stories as relatable to as wide an audience as possible, I think is important. And I also think getting feedback from librarians about what books they are going to be putting on their tables front and center in March or in October when the seasons really change, or June, to really see what librarians and children's sections of libraries are really
1
putting
minute.
out there. And also talking to their teachers about what books they may be using in their classroom, I think is really very helpful and provides really vital feedback for my writing. And there are some avenues and associations for development for writing this specific type of subject matter for children. I think finding writing groups and critique groups are invaluable, and they also provide a lot of wonderful networking. This Society of Children's Books Writers and Illustrators is an international organization that I belong to, and I actually hope everybody would join it, because there is so many interesting people that join this group to really access, you can get access to agents and editors as well. And writing conferences, meeting other writers and agents and editors is another really great way to develop your writing and your networking, and read everything that's out there that is a comp to what you're writing, I think is really important. And to just spend some time in the children's section of your library and to practice query writing, which is when you're sending your manuscripts out to agents and editors, I think is really valuable. It also tells you how well you know the voice of your story and your character. So that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Melissa. And I think all of us would probably be excited to see more about your work yourself if you have some stuff to show and tell.
Yep.
And the last presentation that we're going to have here is from Kate England. So Kate is with the City of Boston, and we'll be presenting about some of the really cool green stormwater infrastructure work that has been going on in the city. So Kate, we're happy to facilitate a screen share here. And this will be our last presentation for this session.
Great. Hey, everybody. Let me just share my screen real quick.
No problem.
It's like the longest 15 seconds of our lives while we're waiting to share our screen. Oh, for some reason, mine is being slow.
No.
Hold on just 1 second. Hope everybody has been enjoying the talk so far today. Don't know. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to really quickly go through 4 things that we do, and they're talking a little bit about recent projects that we've built. One of them is at the East Boston Early Education Center. Another is at the Boston Housing Authority Franklin Field Housing Development. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the work that we do with Power Corps in Boston, and then a little bit about our community-based flood resilience planning. So the first is the East Boston Early Education Center. The Office of Green Infrastructure at the City of Boston likes to engage youth and community in building green infrastructure in the city as often as possible. So we recently built a rain garden with K0 to first grade students at the East Boston Early Education Center in East Boston. The school came to us and said, we have this sidewalk to nowhere. We'd really like to build a rain garden. And so you can see before and after photos, and then the photos on the previous slide were the young people actually doing the work with us. Students actually selected the plant material off of a list of approved plants, and then students, teachers, and their families participated in actually building the rain garden with us. Franklin Field is one of the Boston Housing Authority housing developments down in the Dorchester neighborhood of Boston. We have done a lot of work with teens as well in the city of Boston about doing climate education and talking about nature-based infrastructure and the importance of greening up our city. And so we did a program this past summer with teenagers at the Franklin Field housing development. We did 6 weeks of programming, taught them about climate resilience, climate change, all kinds of how do you site and plan and design and build a rain garden, and then we physically built the rain garden with the students. Now, the students in this instance actually designed the rain garden with us, so a little bit more hands-on than we did with the K0 to first grade students at the East Boston Early Education Center. But you can see in the picture in the top right here, the students are actually helping to design and do plant layout, and then physically constructed the rain garden with their community. We also do a lot of work with PowerCore, which is it's an earn and learn program for young adults 18 to 30 years old in Boston. There are several tracks in the PowerCore program. One of them is the urban greening program. And so we spend a lot of time out in the field with them doing maintenance on green infrastructure. So existing rain gardens and bioswales and bioretention and other things that exist in the city. And then we also do a national green infrastructure certification program training with them, which is a nationally recognized certification and license. So students who are participants in this program, when they graduate from PowerCore, in addition to having hands-on experience working on the green infrastructure with City of Boston, they also are graduating with a certification and license that's internationally recognized. And then the last thing that we're doing is we're doing a citywide initiative right now that it's crowdsourced essentially, but we are collecting survey entries from people who live, work, play, go to school in the city of Boston to give us a better understanding of where we're currently seeing flooding and how it's affecting people. We've got stormwater models that have been made by Boston Water and Sewer Commission and the watershed associations, but they're models and they're not always ground truthed in the way that we need them to be. And so this QR code will allow you to submit a survey response. My understanding is that it's kind of yucky in Boston today, so it actually might be a perfect day for folks to submit entries if you see flooding anywhere, even if it's just ankle high or puddling. We'd love to hear from you. So those are the things that I wanted to talk about. I know it's a short amount of time, but here's my contact information if folks would like to reach out and learn more. And then our social media QR code as well, because we talk about our programs a lot on social media.
All right. Thank you for the invite. I'm Phil Colarusso. I'm a marine biologist with US EPA in Boston. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my favorite submerged aquatic vegetation, which is our local seagrass species, also known as eelgrass. So why should you care about eelgrass? It's an important nursery and refuge habitat for many fish and invertebrate species. It forms the base of our food chain. It's a really prolific primary producer. The canopy of these meadows reduce wave energy, and the roots and rhizomes secure the sediments to prevent erosion. And something I've spent a lot of time recently researching is they sequester carbon. So if you've heard the term blue carbon, that term refers to seagrass meadows, salt marshes, and mangroves. And these habitats are really important mitigators to climate change. So history of eelgrass in Boston Harbor, this is you can go back to historical nautical charts. This is one from the mid-1800s, before Logan was built and the Back Bay was filled in and a lot of other coastal development occurred. And the really neat things about these old charts is if you zoom in, not only do they give you depth contours, but they also give you sediment types. So if you can see Governor's Island Flats, it has the description of soft gray mud, but also GRS, which if I showed you the key to this map, stands for grass. And based on the depth contours, based on the locations, we interpret that to be eelgrass. And we did some interpolation of how much
1 minute.
eelgrass might have been in the system at this time. And we estimate roughly 16,000 acres, which is a lot. And to put that into context, currently in 2024, the total amount of eelgrass in the entire state of Massachusetts is about a little over 19,000 acres. So this was really an important area for eelgrass habitat to persist. Unfortunately, as many people know, Boston Harbor has had its ecological challenges. For decades of poor sewage treatment, a lot of coastal development. This is the current distribution of eelgrass in the harbor, roughly 2023. I think these maps are from. And so the largest meadow still persists on Governor Island Flats, and there's some eelgrass off of runway 22 at Logan. And there's a couple of small meadows along the western shore of Long Island. In total is about 200 acres, just over 200 acres in the harbor currently. So dramatic reduction from what has been historically present in the harbor. And it's, as I mentioned, it's really a critical habitat. It's also a really important indicator of environmental quality. So this species needs really clear water. And as we all know, the harbor is recovering. We've moved the sewage discharge out into Mass Bay. Things are improving, but there's a lag time, and there's a lot of legacy contaminants, nitrogen in the sediments that are going to take, a number of years to kind of have the system work through all those legacy pollutants to allow for the recovery of sensitive habitats such as these. And so I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Phil. I think this is, eelgrass is finally getting its day in the sun, I'll say. There's a lot more interest and research, and this is something I know in Arlington there's a really cool art project and exhibit that's actually about, eelgrass and its role in Boston Harbor. So would love to know more about this lovely little plant. Next up, we'll be hearing from Bill Gallagher, who is going to be talking about the shipwrecks of Boston Harbor.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Yeah, we're a bunch of divers who got a permit from the Underwater Archaeology on a shipwreck in Boston Harbor. During the research, I got interested in the geological process of erosion and deposit, within Boston Harbor. And I happened to run across this illustration here. It was a scientific, can you go back to that slide 1, please? Here there was a scientific study done on Levels Island, and the island itself, if you can see my pointer here, this is the seaward side, and you can see over the years, if you go down to the bottom right one there, the contour has been basically the same, which I find surprisingly. And there's deposits on the north east side of the island, and on the opposite side of the island, it seems like over the years, and I'm saying years being 200 or 300 years, the erosion has gone down to the bedrock, and the depth of the channel there is relatively the same. Can you go to the next slide, please? And this here is Levels Island during the around the 1780s. You can see on the northwest side, the northeast side again, the deposits on the island. And then on the other side, you can see the shoal being built up, during the process of putting deposits around the island itself. And this is interesting, as far as to get somewhat of an idea when you're exploring a shipwreck, how deep is the artifacts of the shipwreck in the mud or debris in the islands there. The next slide, please. Oh, this is an early slide. This is of Levels Island. You can see there in the center of the screen is starting its basic formation. And, you know, once again, basically I'm trying to look at how deposits are made and how erosion is going on within Boston Harbor. This chart here, I believe it's around 1780. The next one, please. And this is a chart from 1946 in Levels Island. You can see on the northwest side there, it's pretty well a straight line, which is interesting in itself. And the narrows there, that's the pathway that the sailing ships would enter into Boston. They would go by Boston Light and go up to the Narrows into the city of Boston or into the Old Harbor, which is Carson Beach. The next slide, please. And this here is a photogrammetry that I took on a shipwreck at low tide. And I can't emphasize the importance of photogrammetry as far as underwater archaeology or recording information and establishing a baseline for scientific research. So you can see in the top part of the screen, you know, parts of the ribs of the ship. And if you look off to the right of that, you can see these boards that are somewhat partially shown in the muck that's there. And the interesting part is here, there is a color shift going from one media to another. It's somewhat of a whitish area where the shipwreck itself went down. And around that outside perimeter is somewhat of a darker color. So it gives you an indication of the length of the ship, which I thought was 30 feet. And the director of underwater archaeology, he confirmed that with me. And the next slide, please. And this is a close-up view. This resolution here is somewhat fair. I have some software that does this. It's open source, it's free. And if I could tweet it some more, I'll be able to zoom down and see the numbers on the tape measure that's being used here. Otherwise, it's a little bit blurry, but you can see how the details it shows. And the advantage of underwater archaeology, you can do the photogrammetry and then you can review it. You don't have to go down anymore and dive, etc. And then the other benefit is that you can print this out in a 3D printer for a model. All right, thank you very much.
Wow, Bill, thank you so much. And I think for anyone who wants to know more, I know Bill has lots of resources and images that maybe you can share in your breakout, because that was just like the barest taste. So I think it's pretty incredible I think a lot of people aren't aware of how much is going on archaeology-wise in Boston Harbor. So excited to hear more. Next up, we will be hearing from Jack Buckley, who's going to be talking particularly about a teacher program that he and his group have been working on, Source to Sanctuary Marine Debris Teacher Cohort. Jack, go ahead and take it away.
All right. Let me share my screen. Let's see. Do you see the slides?
We see them not in the slideshow view. So I think if you hit slideshow, we should
Yep.
be good to go.
All right, great.
Perfect.
Let me start my timer. Here we go. So there's the title of the grant, and what we are interested in doing in this 3 minutes is that we want you teachers to join our next cohort in a marine debris project. So there are three. I'm going to move the screen share. Sorry. Three goals. One, we're building drifters to track marine debris. So here's some pictures of teachers engaged in building with Jim Manning on the left. Drew Bennett on the right from MITC grant. The partnership behind this grant is CSCR, Center for Student Coastal Research, Stonehill College, and MITC grant. And Drew Bennett is working on taking Jim Manning's standard drifter, oceanographic drifter, and building something that's collapsible, lightweight, deployable with sensors, and something that might be more organic and sit on the bottom, collapse when it's done, as opposed to continuing its contribution as marine debris itself. So if you join our cohort, you get to work with Jim and Erin Pelletier, if you know Erin, from the Gulf of Maine Lobster program, and build drifters with students. Another part of the project is data visualization, and Ben Bray from MITC grant is working on a new data visualization in which you can take the drifter plots and put those in with data sets such as sea surface temperature, as an example, and see what some of the physical oceanography, how that interacts with the drifters. We're tracking marine debris on the ground with students using the marine debris tracker, and that's Christy Burkholder on the left, who is an oceanographer at Stonehill College. You get out there with students picking up, doing a lot of marine debris survey with people in the community.
1 minute.
And the next part is in getting students involved in civic action. And what we also are trying to do is create internship opportunities for students. And so we have some funding to support interns in your school, your organization, your community. So really, this is a recruiting pitch. I saw in the chat that there were some shameless plugs. So here's a shameless plug, or not so shameless plug, to get yourself involved in our project. Marine debris, oceanography, engineering, data science, civic action. And we are looking for teachers to join a 3-day immersive workshop, June 30th to July 2nd. $1,000 stipend for the teachers to work on implementing marine debris curriculum during the 25-26 year, and a symposium in 2026 in the spring. So let me go back to that last slide. I can share some contact info. My email and phone numbers on the bottom of that slide. And that's my 3 minutes. So that's it. Join us. It's going to be awesome.
Thank you, Jack. And we keep those shameless plugs coming in the chat as well. So next we're going to hear from Kata Gilbertson, who's going to share about Esteem Floating Wetland Activity Kit, a nature-based classroom tool.
Hi everyone, let me just share my screen. Can you guys see that okay?
Perfect.
Okay, so my name is Kata Gilbertson. I am the project and event assistant at the Charles River Conservancy. I'm also joined here by my colleague Taylor Leonard, who will be hopping into the breakout room after this to help answer any questions. And I'm going to be talking about our floating wetland STEAM activity kits. So first, a little bit about what our floating wetland is. So the Charles River is one of the cleanest urban rivers in the country, but it still faces issues like eutrophication and cyanobacteria. And so the Charles River Conservancy took part in a pilot program to build a floating wetland in the Charles to tackle some of the issues like pollution, to help increase biodiversity, and to just keep the community actively engaged in an ecosystem that exists locally. And since its successful installation in 2020, public engagement has been a really important part of this whole process, just to keep the local community informed about a nature-based solution that's existing around them. And one example of this public engagement is our floating wetland STEAM activity kits. So with support from the MITC grant and Community Service Fund, we have worked with teachers, students, and educators to make these kits that are delivered to Cambridge Public School classrooms that allow students to build their own floating wetland that mimics the function of the real floating wetland that's actually in the Charles. And with these kits comes booklets that have been translated into 6 different languages to help accessibly teach students about Charles River ecology, pollution, and water quality. And this takes form in a 4-week lesson that's targeted for grades 3 to 6, but is also adaptable for lots of different grade and age groups. And over these 4 weeks, students will be logging observations of what they're seeing in the kit and in the water in the kit. And we hope that students can connect this to their river unit, which is part of the Cambridge Public School science curriculum. And then we also hope that students can connect this with previous science skills that they've learned in school, like making observations, creating hypotheses, and taking notes. And then one of our goals is to just keep improving these kits by staying in constant communication with the education community so we can make these kits most effective in the classroom environment and expand this hands-on learning opportunity to more schools. And then another way we've expanded this opportunity is that the CRC leads hands-on programming that often ends up in a kayak tour where we can take students out to see the real floating wetland in the Charles. So they're able to connect something that they've been learning so much about in school, in the classroom, to this real world ecosystem or this real world nature-based solution that's existing in a local ecosystem. And you can learn more about this on our website at thecharles.org under our floating wetland engagement section. And yeah, feel free to join our breakout room to ask any questions to me and Taylor. Thank you so much.
Kata, I'm not sure. We only saw your first slide. You were advancing slides? Okay.
No, it's just this one slide today.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kata. And next, we're going to be moving on to Margaret Hart from UMass Boston, who's going to be presenting about a project she did on Thompson/Kathleen Stone Island regarding a well-known tree. Can't wait to hear more.
All right, let me share my screen. Let's just get in here. And I'm hoping everyone can see this.
Yes, looks great.
So thank you, everybody. Glad to be here. Last year, I was part of an exhibition at the Grossman Gallery at UMass Boston, where it was called Artists in the Archive, and we worked with the UMass Boston Archives. And through that project, this is one of the works, I was looking at the archives dealing with Thompson Island, which is now Kathleen Stone Island. But I'm going to refer to it as Thompson Island still. The two archives that I really came across early on were this one, which is a series of photographs from 1814 to 1940, and then also this scrapbook dealing with the Thompson Island Farm and Trade School, 1921 to 1928. So I was really intrigued by this photograph, and I did not have a chance to really work with this photograph when I was doing that exhibition and the work for that show. So I have been thinking about it quite a bit and kind of going back and looking at the archives some more. And one of the things I had presented at Kingston Gallery earlier this year or last year, and was thinking about how I could engage this particular tree in a project. So I can look at this tree. I can go back through the archives that UMass Boston has and some other organizations, and I can kind of locate where this tree was and perhaps still is. So it's not that I've done this project. I am in the beginning stages of this project. It's related to a project I'm doing at the Arnold Arboretum dealing with redwood trees. But I'm interested in this idea of non-human history, right? This idea that the tree itself has a specific history. You can see this is actually the tree on the left here in this early newspaper. So I want to kind of research this. There are documents throughout the archives dealing with the history of Thompson Island. I plan to kind of look for when this tree was imported. It's a maple tree, how it was brought to the island, what that history might be, and kind of just end with a series of artworks that kind of talks about this idea of, I'm just going to look here so I make sure I get it all, this non-human history, the environmental pressures and impacts that might be specific to the island and the tree existing on that island. And then how do I visualize that? So one of the things is, looking at this tree, thinking about making drawings, perhaps videos, photographs, collages, which is how I tend to work most. And just, oops. And then at that point, just allowing some work to kind of emerge and then sharing that with people to kind of bring this history of the islands, what's happening with the flora and fauna, and how artists can contribute to this idea of the environment and climate issues. Thank you.
Wow, that's amazing, Margaret. I've never seen an image of that island that transformed in its farming state. That was really wild to see versus knowing how it looks now.
Yeah.
So we are going to wrap up this section here with a final presentation about the Boston Area City Nature Challenge, a great way to get out and explore your area and your own biodiversity near your home, presented by Alexandra Marston from UMass Boston.
Hello, I'm just going to share my screen. All right. Can everyone see my slides?
Perfect.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Alex Marston. I'm a senior at UMass Boston, and I'm currently on the committee to help organize the City Nature Challenge for the Boston area. Now, the City Nature Challenge involves a 4-day BioBlitz event, which is a brief and intensive survey of biodiversity over a set area and time. It's an annual event which encourages diverse communities to observe and collect data on local species. Originally, the CNC actually started as a competition just between San Francisco and LA in 2016, but has since grown to over 480 cities around the world today. Now, the Boston area actually includes more than just the city of Boston. We encompass over 170 towns that stretch from 495 all the way out to Stellwagen Bank, which is a great opportunity to get some marine observations, especially at Boston Harbor. The CNC encourages collaboration among communities while also providing useful data for the conservation of species. Scientists and managers can actually use that information to track population changes and inform policies on protecting local species at risk in their communities. Now, iNaturalist is a site that we use. It's both a website and a mobile app. The app is great for making observations. You can go right out into the field and snap a picture on your phone, upload it right away, whereas the website is better for interacting and editing those observations. What's also important to note is that this is an open science platform, which means it is accessible to everyone, whether or not you have a background in science or conservation, or you just really like getting out into nature. Now, the CNC is great because not only does it connect people to each other and their community, but it also connects them to local nature in their urban areas. Anyone, regardless of age or experience, can become a biodiversity steward and a citizen scientist in their own right. So the CNC actually takes place in 2 separate phases, the first of which is for field observations. That's from April 25th to the 28th. And then the following days from April 29th to May 4th are for the ID of those observations, where actual experts can log onto iNaturalist and help you figure out what it was that you had taken pictures of. So as educators, here is how you can get involved. You can plan events to get local communities out into nature. These could look anything like outdoor field trip for middle and high school students or hosting special tours on the Boston Harbor and islands. Public outreach and communication are super important. We want to try to get as many people involved as possible so we can advertise the CNC and public bulletins, meetings, or webinars, or even posting cool finds and fun facts on social media to kind of spark people's interest. And of course, when the time comes, you can team up with fellow educators in groups or even compete against them, really get that motivation going and get really excited to participate in conservation and nature in the Boston area. Thank you.